let's talk about holiday stress. There are many gatherings to come this month with friends, family, and chosen family. Depending on your situation, these can be enjoyable or highly stressful, especially if you identify as LGBTQ and don't have the most supportive environment to come home to. A new partnership between the organization Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, known as PFLAG, and the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project, aims to support LGBTQ Wisconsinites and their families ahead of holiday gatherings. It's called the Coming Home Tour. The statewide tour of PFLAG meetings shares stories of LGBTQ history and heritage to help people feel more grounded. To learn more, Lake Effect's Audrey Nowakowski spoke with Michael Takash, the chair of the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project, and Georgia Henry, president of PFLAG Milwaukee Chapter.
The Coming Home Tour is a collaboration between PFLAG and the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project. So, can you share what strengths and expertise each of your organizations brings to this tour?
Well, probably the strength that PFLAG brings is that we are a supportive organization, of course, and we're all about families, whether chosen or birth families, and we like to support everybody. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
So the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project is first and foremost anchored in heritage. And heritage is not something that most LGBTQ people think they have. When they come out, usually they feel, the world starts there. Often they don't realize that there was a long line of people throughout history, going back hundreds of years who have had the same shared experiences, many of the same challenges, and many of the same triumphs and victories. So we believe in preserving that heritage cycle because connecting with that heritage is tremendously important for not only the formation of a healthy sense of self, but also a healthy sense of relationships with other people in their lives. So as we approach the holiday season, especially a holiday season that might be more challenging than in recent years, we think it's important that if people are seeking common ground, that they find it in heritage, just as they would with ethnic identity, religious identity, family identity, you name it. The history and heritage of our community can also provide that common ground.
Yeah, and that's an aspect that I feel isn't explored too much. There's always, of course, the importance of current representation when, especially, people are just starting their coming out journey. But this heritage piece is a really great way to connect. So, Michael, have you seen this very much, or just in your work with the History Project, did you feel like, in your experience, connecting with these stories of countless other people, that this could help other people looking for that initial support system?
What I've found over the past 15 years of working with the history projects is that stories have power and stories have the ability to influence and guide and inspire people. And I think that right now, what people are looking for more than anything are stories of hope. They feel kind of hopeless and they feel kind of overwhelmed and they feel kind of uncertain. And I think that knowing the stories of people who conquered insurmountable challenges that really in the end weren't so insurmountable after all, and still managed to live long, rewarding, rich, and colorful lives. I think those stories matter now more than ever, and I think elevating them to the point where people have a place to go and find them and a place to share them from is really, really important. Keeping that narrative alive is really important because I think that without that, people often feel transported back to the 40s or 50s when LGBTQ people thought that they were alone in the world, and they were often told that they were the only person like themselves, the only person with this problem. They were broken, they were damaged, they, needed fixing, they needed healing so that they could conform to what mainstream society was telling them to be and how to feel and how to live. And, I think that without that connection to history and heritage, people are often transported back to that
Mm.
isolating, destabilizing time. And it's unfortunate that youth today are hearing the same rhetoric, particularly in the political sphere, that their grandparents' generation was hearing long before liberation, Stonewall, mobilization, community building. So anything we can do to counteract that with some positive, constructive, and connective heritage, we're all for it. And that's really what inspired this partnership with PFLAG. We reached out to PFLAG National and Georgia simultaneously, and we're told, this is a remarkable idea and it's needed now more than ever. So again, really our goal is just to give people something to share, something to talk about, something to feel good about, and to create some common ground.
Georgia, in your experience, can you share some of the common issues or conversations that families and partners or allies of LGBTQ people are facing during the holidays coming to PFLAG for support?
A lot of people are not accepted by their family, but yet they want to be with their family. And so it's like how to deal with, okay, grandpa doesn't know I'm gay or trans or whatever. And how do we deal with that? There's just a lot of issues that people are afraid of when it comes to family because they love their family and they want their family to love them. They want to be a part of that family community. So it makes it very difficult for a lot of them when their families are not accepting.
Well, and with holidays being considered the toughest time for LGBTQ people to come home, we're not just talking about holiday season in general. We're talking about a holiday post an election that was extremely divisive. So, what kind of tools or conversations are you having to navigate this extra layer on top of what are some common issues that people face automatically?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of our LGBT loved ones that come to PFLAG, their families didn't vote the way that they had hoped they would vote. We are not nonpartisan, so I don't want to get too political, but there's a lot of angst with the LGBT community and their families that didn't vote the way they thought they should have. And we tell them not to, don't even bring up politics. So it comes up, don't even talk about it because it'll only lead to angst and heartbreak and things like that. Pretty much that's what we tell people, let's go, have fun, enjoy your family, but don't talk politics.
Yeah, a tool that I think a lot of people are using this season. I'm wondering if you both can just share some of the conversations you've had or observed or the new information you've shared with people and what have been some of your takeaways, because you go into something with the intention of this outcome, but what have you actually been seeing and experiencing?
I think what's been most fascinating to me is how universal the sentiment is, whether it is Door County or Marshfield or Milwaukee or Waukesha or Madison. There's this overwhelming feeling of now what? And there's just this tremendous anxiety and uncertainty for the future because people who thought that, they had found some advancements and some gains and some acceptance perhaps now realize that perhaps they were not accepted as much as they thought they were. I think that the other thing that we've heard is that, families are very divided right now. I mean, there are families where, one parent is very supportive and the other parent is just kind of doing what they've always done and don't really see the connection to their own family in terms of voting and policies and civil rights and equality and so forth. I mean, it's tremendously challenging to sit down for a holiday dinner at a table where others voted against your best interests, that people voted against your well-being, and literally could, in the case of the transgender community, could have contributed to the like the legal and political eradication of your whole identity, which is, actually on the table. There's actually motion to define gender as male or female in the federal government. And, that is a terrible feeling. And that feeling of betrayal is out there as well. This feeling of, you said you were an ally, you said you were a friend, you said you supported my community, and this is what you did to me. And I don't think people understand that. I mean, if you have not had to fear for your civil rights being lost in an election cycle, I don't know that you really can relate to that feeling. But there are a lot of people out there who are very scared that that's exactly what just happened, that, they've through this election process, that they've lost, any gains they had and possibly have lost everything. And they don't know how to sit face to face with the people who helped make that possible, or how to even educate them on what's at stake, or even to dial it even back further, to educate them on the history of what got us to here and what we've already overcome and what we had hoped to overcome for our future. So I think that is really what I think has been most surprising, is just the universal sentiment. It's not different in big chapters versus small chapters. We went to a meeting where there were, less than a dozen people there. We went to a meeting where we filled an entire conference room. I think the feeling is very universal right now.
And for you, Georgia, what have you been noticing, experiencing? Is this a bit different than previous meetings you've had in your work with PFLAG?
Everyone was excited about the history project because sadly, most of us don't know a lot about it. And I've seen Michael's presentation twice now, and both times I learned, first time I learned a lot of new information, and the second time, even more information. And that was the general consensus that, wow, I didn't know that all this had happened in Wisconsin. In a lot of ways, people are very proud of Wisconsin because they're learning about the history that Michael is presenting. And a lot of the folks are just appalled that they didn't know about this. So I think the history project is a fantastic thing that is happening in Wisconsin. And the coordination with PFLAG is even better.
As Michael mentioned, you've visited Cambridge, Waukesha, Madison, Door County, Milwaukee, Marshfield, and there's Ashland to come. So for people who perhaps don't live around these areas or can't access some of these meetings that you're holding in person, can you share any means of support or resources for people that they can access today?
So we always recommend that people visit our website and understand that we have the state's largest collection of LGBTQ historical multimedia. So that means that we have, not only stories, but we also have photos, and we have organizational histories, and we have, event histories. And we also have almost every LGBT publication ever published in Wisconsin, going back to the early 70s, in readable format on our website. So there is a lot to explore. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to learn. And within all of that, we also have our social media program. So if you follow us on social media, even if you're not a huge fan of history, we'll send you history lessons on almost a daily basis to learn more about the state, the people who have lived here, the progress that they've made, the places that they lived and loved. And within all of that comes the transfer of heritage we talked about before. You'll always have something to share, something to talk about, something to relate to. I think that I, have seen this in the world where parents wish they could have a conversation that's meaningful with their LGBTQ youth, but they don't really know how to kick off that conversation and not seem like they're prying or invasive. Making it not about the individual, but about their community, and trying to show interest and trying to show support and trying to show a little bit of knowledge shows that you're doing the work. It shows that you're trying to be part of a meaningful allyship, and shows that you're trying to be supportive in a meaningful way. So I think that really that's my advice is, just get connected with us, and we will give you things that will be helpful in navigating your loved one's journey, and doing that in a meaningful and productive way rather than an awkward and perhaps clumsy way.
Well, Georgia and Michael, I want to thank you both so much for joining me today to share more about the Coming Home tour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Takash is the chair of the Wisconsin LGBTQ History Project, and Georgia Henry is the president of PFLAG Milwaukee chapter. They both joined Lake Effect's Audrey Nowakowski to talk about their Coming Home tour, which will have its next stop in Ashland on December 5th. You can find more information and additional resources at WUWM.com.